Welcome to the CNBC TV 18 special. I'm Shireen Bhan. You're watching the Make in India budget, and we're in conversation with a man who heads one of the world's largest conglomerates. I'm talking about GE. We're in conversation with the Vice Chairman of GE, John Rice. John, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Let me start by congratulating you. Your new facility in Pune is up now and been inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Give us a sense of how confident you feel about the India story today on the back of the many initiatives that have already been announced by the government and the promises that are being held out.
Well, thank you, Shireen. We're feeling very confident. You know, as we inaugurate phase one, we're starting to think about phase two. The work that we've done in Pune has exceeded our expectations. We love the quality of the team and the workforce. And frankly, we're optimistic. We think it's a perfect example of what's possible under Make India.
You know, you talked about phase two, John. If you can give us some color on what phase two could entail, how soon will you get things started, and what will that mean in terms of incremental investments?
Well, we think we'll start phase two this year. The planning is underway, and incremental investment will probably be about 50% of what phase one was, so that'll take us up close to a couple of $100 billion. And as those of you who have seen the facility will see, there's room for expansion past that. So we think the work that we're doing at the facility has a very, very bright future, and we don't know where it'll end.
So a ballpark number that you can leave us with in terms of what we can expect incremental investments from GE to India over the next few years, specifically as far as the manufacturing sector is concerned?
Well, we haven't put a figure on that. We do look across all of our businesses at opportunities to expand. We manufacture in all of our businesses somewhere in India, so we're quite happy with the footprint that we have, and we're going to look for other opportunities to invest, and we're going to pay close attention to what the government does with the Make India initiative and what the individual states do in support of that initiative as we think about opportunities for additional investment.
You know, speaking of opportunities, and I'll come to Make in India in just a bit, but I would like to get your comments on the clarifications that have come in recently from the government as far as the 123 agreement or the nuclear deal is concerned. The government has made it absolutely clear that there is going to be no amendment to the liability law, but they have clarified positions as far as some of the contentious issues are concerned. I'm sure your team in India has briefed you on those clarifications that have come in. How comfortable do you now feel with the terms that the Indian government has put on the table as far as the nuclear deal is concerned?
Well, we're certainly becoming more comfortable. We are very happy that the governments have had the constructive dialogue that they've had, the U.S. and the Indian government. And we're anxious for this process to move forward and be concluded. We believe that nuclear needs to be part of India's power generation future, and we'd like to participate.
If I could get your specific comments on the clarifications that have come in, and you know, the government has proposed the creation of an insurance pool, and there were reports suggesting that GE and Westinghouse were perhaps not on board entirely as far as the insurance pool plan was concerned. Can you throw some color on what your position is as far as the insurance pool is concerned?
Well, I'd prefer not to comment on the specific discussions that we might have had with respect to this topic. We're encouraged by the progress, and we're anxious to conclude and move forward and bid on nuclear projects.
Okay, just to take that forward, do you also now get comfort from the fact that the Indian government has clarified that suppliers of reactors and parts will not be directly liable, nor can they be sued by an Indian contractor unless it is provided for in the contract that is inked? So unless it's a contractual obligation, the right to recourse in that sense has now been limited. Do you get comfort from that?
We do get comfort from that. We're obviously working closely with, our teams are working closely with their counterparts in both the Indian and the U.S. government, make sure we understand all the forms of clarification that go with that. So like I said before, We're encouraged. We think there's a little more work to be done, and we're hopeful that we can conclude this and move forward.
What specific clarifications are you now waiting for? And if I can ask you whether what you're hearing from the U.S. government and what you're hearing from the Indian government is aligned, because, you know, we've been short on clarity as far as the positions taken by both governments beyond saying that there has been a breakthrough. And as the details now start to come in, there are concerns on whether both positions are actually aligned. On the basis of the conversations that you're having with the U.S. government and the clarifications that have been put on the table from the Indian side, is there an alignment of both those positions?
Well, I think there appears to be, but candidly, I haven't been involved directly in the specific discussions, so I'd prefer not to comment, except to say that we're optimistic with the progress that's been made, and we're hopeful that we can reach a conclusion that everybody's comfortable with so that we can move forward to bid on nuclear projects in India.
Okay. Let me now talk to you about the other areas of opportunity. And of course, we've had this conversation in the past as well. We are now awaiting the railway budget, and hopefully the government will put forward its blueprint on modernization and what it really intends to do in order to attract more foreign direct investment and private sector investment into the sector. Any update from the government, and how confident are you feeling about the railway opportunity in specific?
Well, Shireen, you know, we certainly believe the government understands the need to modernize the railway and our interest in participating in that. We've made it clear that we're prepared to be an investor, that we would be prepared to commit several $100 million toward the construction of a locomotive assembly facility here in partnership with Indian companies.
Are you happy? Is your team in India happy with the pace of progress on matters related to the opportunities within the railway sector? Because there's been a lot of talk, but you know, perhaps tangible action on the ground hasn't really taken off just yet. Are you happy with the pace of progress?
No, we'd like to see more progress faster, for sure. But again, it's a new government, a new rail minister, and I think they deserve some time to make the choices and determine the right course of action. I think that hopefully there'll be some clarity coming out of the upcoming budget. We're certainly anxious for that to happen, and we would like to move forward. We have what I'd call healthy impatience for this project, and we'd like to see it happen.
Healthy impatience is a nice way of putting it, John. But let me ask you about the other opportunities that the GE has been looking at, and that is the defense sector, where we actually have seen the FDI cap being moved up. And there is a sense that there is a lot of foreign interest, and perhaps we could see deals being inked, joint ventures being inked fairly quickly. What's your own take on the defense opportunity? And is GE in talks with anybody for a potential joint venture? How confident do you feel about this?
Well, we certainly feel good about the actions that have been taken, that the indication from the government that this is going to be an important segment. We participate through our aviation business and in a number of military requirements for jet engines. It's a space that we know well. It's one that we're committed to. We would certainly be open to looking at partnerships where they might make sense in order to compete for tenders that would come from the government in this regard.
Any partners already identified yet for potential joint ventures in the defense space?
No specifics that I'd be prepared to comment on, but you know, when you've been in India as long as we have, we have regular discussions with companies all the time about potential tie-ups and collaborations and joint ventures. Lots of those discussions don't go anywhere, but some of them do, and we'll tell you about them as soon as we're in a position to.
Okay. Oil and gas, and you know, it continues to be stuck in the same regulatory issues that were constraining the growth of the sector when we had our last conversation. Do you feel any better about the potential growth for the oil and gas sector in India? And proportionately investments coming into the sector?
Well, I'd like to see a little bit higher price for gas, one that would encourage more rapid development of the offshore gas resources. I think that would help a lot. And when that happens, we'll be ready, as will other investors, to commit funds to develop some local capabilities.
But how concerned are you about this business, not just in India, but globally as well, given where crude prices currently are? We have seen a little bit of a pickup in prices, but the general consensus seems to be that maybe these prices could be the new normal. How concerned are you about the oil and gas business, not just in India, but globally as well?
Well, look, I think the world has experienced in the last 6 months a rapid, unpredicted decline in the price of oil. I don't think anybody who's predicting that it goes lower or higher from here was right in whatever they predicted 6 months ago, because nobody, when it was 100, was really predicting that 50 was in the cards. So I think we've got to accept the fact that oil is a commodity that's going to cycle, and be ready for whatever those cycles bring to us. I think that's true for a company like ours that has an oil and gas business. I think it's true for a country like India that relies on significant volume of imports to fulfill its need. There will be a little bit of a windfall for India with the lower price for oil. I think the question now is, what does the government do with that, and how do you turn that into an opportunity in the future, regardless of what happens with the price of oil?
Staying with the energy sector, the government is putting its might behind renewable energy as well. Solar, wind is going to be big on the agenda, trying to attract foreign investment as well as private sector investment from India towards this. And of course, the government has promised 24/7 power supply, which also means that there is expected to be a significant thrust on attracting investment into the power sector in general. Do you like the power story? Do you feel better about the power story in India today?
I do. We're active in a number of sectors, certainly in the wind segment. It's very attractive to us. We've localized capabilities. We're seeing, market opportunities and having some success. And again, I think it's another example of how the government is beginning to see that you need a portfolio of power generation choices when you think about the needs of India today and the needs over the coming decades. Wind, solar, hydro, not to mention, coal and nuclear and natural gas all have to be part of the mix.
Do you have a sense of how much more we could see you invest specifically as far as the power sector is concerned, given the fact that the government is attracting more foreign investment into this sector at this point in time?
Well, again, we look at a range of investment options all the time, so it's not a guess that I'd put a number on, but we are interested in being an investor. We also work with third-party investors who would like to participate in infrastructure projects around the world, and we introduce them to our ideas in India.
Well, on that note, we are going to take a break, but when we return, we continue our conversation with John Rice, the Vice Chairman of GE, on the Make in India budget.